Why do some people navigate economic uncertainty with confidence, while others live in constant financial anxiety, checking their bank balance obsessively, and losing sleep over every expense? While dramatic financial advice creates panic about economic collapse and pushes unrealistic saving targets, truly resilient people understand that financial security comes from steady preparation rather than fear-driven decisions. Here's what most financial content won't tell you honestly. Building resilience doesn't require dramatic lifestyle changes or perfect economic predictions. The anxiety-inducing messages about imminent economic disaster often do more harm than the actual economic challenges they warn against. Over the next few minutes, I'll reveal 7 principles for building genuine financial resilience with a balanced perspective on economic realities. The 4th principle shows why gradual preparation outperforms panic-driven financial decisions, though individual circumstances vary significantly. If you want practical financial security without fear-based messaging, subscribe and comment "Steady Resilience" below. But that's just the beginning. What I'm about to reveal shows why the village's water reservoir explains building security through patience rather than panic. 1. Emergency savings as an economic cushion. Unexpected expenses create genuine stress when you don't have accessible cash to handle them. Your car needs an $800 repair, you face a medical bill, or your washing machine breaks down, and suddenly you're scrambling to figure out how to pay without going into debt. This financial pressure forces you to make poor decisions like using credit cards for emergencies, borrowing money at high interest rates, or skipping other important expenses to cover urgent needs. Without a financial buffer, every unexpected cost becomes a crisis that can derail your monthly budget and create a cycle where you're always catching up rather than getting ahead. Let me tell you about 2 communities that approached resource management differently. The hand-to-mouth village consumed all available water immediately during abundant periods, never setting aside reserves for predictable dry seasons. When water became scarce, residents faced genuine hardship and had to make difficult choices about rationing. The prepared community built a systematic water reservoir during good times, storing excess for periods when natural sources ran low. When dry seasons arrived, they had reserves to maintain normal life, while other communities struggled. The solution involves building emergency savings gradually rather than dramatically. Start with a small goal, like $1,000, to cover minor unexpected expenses. Then work toward 3 to 6 months of basic living costs for larger emergencies. However, these amounts should be adjusted based on your actual income and circumstances, rather than following rigid formulas. Here's something realistic you can implement. If you're not currently saving anything for emergencies, start by setting aside $25 to $50 per paycheck in a separate savings account. If you already have some emergency savings, consider increasing them gradually when you receive raises or reduce other expenses. The mindset shift needed is viewing emergency funds as insurance rather than a lost opportunity. This money isn't doing nothing. It's providing security and preventing debt when unexpected expenses arise. However, don't let emergency fund building create financial stress or prevent you from meeting basic needs. Balance is important. Emergency savings should reduce rather than increase your daily financial anxiety. If building emergency funds creates stress about other expenses or leads to extreme frugality that harms your relationships or mental health, adjust the approach to find a sustainable balance between security and current life quality. Economic uncertainty awareness. Economic news and uncertainty create constant anxiety when you don't understand how external changes might affect your personal finances. You hear about inflation, interest rate changes, or global events and feel overwhelmed by factors completely outside your control. This uncertainty can lead to either paralyzing worry that prevents financial decisions or complete avoidance of economic awareness that leaves you unprepared for predictable changes. The fear of economic instability often causes people to make poor decisions like hoarding cash due to inflation fears, avoiding all investments due to market volatility, or constantly changing financial strategies based on news cycles. Let me tell you about two business owners who handled market uncertainty differently. The rigid trader assumed stable conditions would continue indefinitely and felt shocked and unprepared when economic circumstances changed. He had no flexibility in his business model and couldn't adapt when customer needs or cost structures shifted. The adaptive navigator stayed informed about economic trends while maintaining flexible response capabilities. He understood that change was normal in business cycles and built adaptability into his operations, rather than trying to predict specific outcomes. The solution involves staying reasonably informed about economic conditions while focusing on building personal financial flexibility, rather than trying to predict or control external events. However, avoid consuming excessive financial news that creates anxiety without improving your actual decision-making. Here's something practical you can implement. Spend 15 to 20 minutes weekly reading reputable financial news to stay generally informed. Then focus the rest of your time on actions you can control, like budgeting, saving, and skill development. Avoid daily market updates or dramatic economic predictions that create stress without providing actionable information. The mindset shift needed is understanding that economic uncertainty is normal and manageable through preparation rather than prediction. However, avoid letting economic awareness become a source of constant worry or decision paralysis. Balance perspective. While staying informed about economic trends can help with planning, excessive focus on factors beyond your control often creates more anxiety than benefit. Economic conditions affect everyone, but personal financial resilience provides the best protection regardless of external circumstances. Individual circumstances vary regarding how economic changes affect personal finances, and gradual preparation typically works better than dramatic reactions to economic news or predictions. 3. Inflation impact management. Rising costs for everyday items create genuine stress when your income stays flat, while everything from groceries to utilities becomes more expensive. You notice your monthly budget is buying less than it used to, and this gradual erosion of purchasing power makes you feel like you're falling behind financially, even when your spending habits haven't changed. This price pressure can create anxiety about long-term financial security and tempt you to make dramatic changes that might not be sustainable. Inflation fears often lead people to make poor decisions like hoarding cash in low-yield accounts, avoiding investments due to market volatility, or drastically cutting expenses in ways that harm their quality of life or relationships. Let me tell you about two farmers who handled price fluctuations differently. The fixed-price expectant planned his entire operation assuming costs would remain constant year after year. When inevitable price increases occurred for seeds, fuel, and equipment, he felt shocked and unprepared, often making hasty decisions that hurt his long-term profitability. The cost-conscious planner expected gradual price increases as part of normal economic cycles. He built flexibility into his budget, focused on improving efficiency rather than just cutting costs, and made adjustments gradually rather than reacting dramatically to every price change. The solution involves acknowledging inflation as a normal economic factor while building gradual resilience rather than making dramatic lifestyle changes based on inflation fears. Focus on increasing income potential and reducing unnecessary expenses rather than hoarding cash or avoiding reasonable investments. Here's something practical you can implement. Review your budget annually and identify areas where you can improve efficiency or reduce waste without dramatically affecting your quality. Consider skills development that could increase your earning potential rather than just focusing on expense reduction. The mindset shift needed is to view inflation as a manageable challenge rather than a crisis requiring extreme measures. However, avoid both ignoring inflation completely and becoming obsessed with price changes that create constant anxiety. Balance perspective. While inflation does affect purchasing power, Historical data show that wages and investment returns generally adjust over time. Extreme responses to inflation often cause more problems than the inflation itself. Focus on building overall financial resilience through emergency funds, income growth, and reasonable investments, rather than dramatic reactions to price changes that may be temporary. 4. Government spending and debt awareness. Government fiscal policies and economic decisions affect your personal finances through taxes, interest rates, and inflation, but constant worry about political and economic factors beyond your control can create anxiety that prevents you from focusing on actionable financial strategies. You might spend hours reading about national debt, political decisions, or economic predictions while neglecting your personal budget, emergency fund, or skill development that actually impact your financial security. This focus on uncontrollable external factors often leads to either paralyzing worry about economic doom scenarios or complete disengagement from financial planning, neither of which improves your actual financial situation. Let me tell you about two people who approached civic and economic awareness differently. The passive complainer constantly worried about government decisions and spent significant time discussing political and economic problems without understanding how to respond constructively. His anxiety about external factors prevented him from taking practical steps to improve his personal financial position. The informed participant stayed reasonably aware of fiscal policies and economic trends while focusing primarily on building personal financial resilience. She understood that government decisions affect everyone, but that individual financial security provides the best protection regardless of external circumstances. The solution involves staying informed about economic policies that affect you while channeling most of your energy toward controllable actions like building emergency funds, developing marketable skills, and creating multiple income sources. However, avoid consuming excessive political or economic news that creates anxiety without improving your decision-making. Here's something practical you can implement. Limit political and economic news consumption to 20 to 30 minutes weekly from reputable sources. Then spend significantly more time on personal financial actions like budgeting, saving, or learning skills that could increase your earning potential. The mindset shift needed is understanding that personal financial resilience provides better security than trying to predict or control government policies. However, this doesn't mean completely ignoring civic responsibilities. Voting and staying informed matter for society overall. Balanced perspective. While government fiscal policies do affect individual finances through taxes and economic conditions, excessive focus on political factors often creates more anxiety than practical benefit. Individual financial preparation typically provides better security than worrying about national economic policies beyond your control. Focus on building personal resilience while staying reasonably informed about broader economic trends. 5. Building substantial savings systematically. Waiting for the perfect time to start building substantial savings keeps many people stuck in financial insecurity for years. You tell yourself you'll start saving seriously when you get a better job, pay off debt completely, or have enough disposable income to make meaningful contributions. Meanwhile, years pass while you wait for ideal conditions that rarely arrive, missing the compound benefits of starting with whatever amount you can currently manage. This perfectionist approach often leads to either never starting to save or attempting dramatic lifestyle changes that prove unsustainable, causing you to abandon your savings goals entirely when the initial motivation fades. Let me tell you about two people approaching major construction projects differently. The all-or-nothing dreamer waited years to begin building his house until he could afford premium materials, ideal weather conditions, and perfect circumstances all at once. He spent years planning and waiting while his empty lot remained unused. The systematic builder started with basic materials and simple techniques, then improved and expanded gradually as resources became available. His structure looked modest initially, but consistent work created a solid foundation that he could build upon over time. The solution involves starting wealth building with whatever amount feels sustainable right now, then gradually increasing contributions as income grows or expenses optimize. However, adjust savings goals based on your actual circumstances rather than following rigid formulas that might create financial stress. Here's something practical you can implement. If you're not currently saving anything, start with an amount that won't strain your budget, even $25 per paycheck. Set up automatic transfers so consistency happens without requiring ongoing willpower. If you're already saving, consider increasing by just 1% of your income when you receive raises. The mindset shift needed is understanding that consistent small amounts often outperform sporadic large contributions due to compound growth and habit formation. However, don't let savings goals create financial stress or prevent you from meeting essential needs. Balance consideration. Building savings should enhance rather than restrict your overall life satisfaction. If saving becomes obsessive, creates anxiety about reasonable expenses, or damages important relationships, adjust your approach to maintain psychological well-being. Individual financial situations vary dramatically, and sustainable saving looks different for everyone based on income, expenses, and life circumstances. 6. Pay yourself first principle. Most people treat savings as an afterthought, planning to save whatever money remains at the end of each month after covering all other expenses. This approach typically results in saving very little or nothing because there's always another expense, unexpected cost, or tempting purchase that consumes any leftover money. Meanwhile, you feel frustrated about not building wealth despite having good intentions about saving more. This save what's left mentality often leads to months or years of minimal savings progress, creating discouragement about ever achieving financial goals and reinforcing the belief that you don't earn enough to save meaningfully. Let me tell you about two people who approached personal development differently. The external dependent waited for others to provide opportunities, training, and financial security. He spent money on immediate needs and wants first, hoping that external circumstances would eventually create the resources for his long-term development. The self-developer invested in personal capabilities and financial foundation first, treating these as essential rather than optional expenses. She understood that building her own resources created opportunities and security that, depending on others, couldn't provide. The solution involves treating savings like an essential expense rather than an optional activity by automating transfers to savings before other discretionary spending occurs. However, this approach requires having sufficient income to meet basic needs after saving, which isn't realistic for everyone facing financial constraints. Here's something practical you can implement. If your budget allows, set up automatic transfers to savings immediately after receiving income, treating it like any other necessary payment. Start with an amount that doesn't create financial stress. Even $50 monthly can build momentum and create the habit. The mindset shift needed is viewing saving as investing in your future self rather than depriving your current self. However, avoid creating guilt or financial stress if circumstances prevent substantial saving. Basic needs and financial stability come first. Critical balance. Pay yourself first only works when you have sufficient income to meet essential needs after saving. Don't sacrifice basic necessities, housing security, or mental health to follow rigid saving formulas. Individual circumstances vary dramatically regarding saving capacity based on income level, debt obligations, family responsibilities, and living costs. If implementing this approach creates financial stress or prevents meeting basic needs, adjust the amount or focus on building income and reducing expenses first. 7. Long-term financial security without anxiety. Financial planning often swings between two harmful extremes, either ignoring money completely and hoping everything works out, or becoming so focused on worst-case economic scenarios that you live in constant anxiety about financial security. You might find yourself obsessively checking investment accounts, losing sleep over market fluctuations, or becoming so restrictive with spending that it damages your relationships and mental health. This financial anxiety can become self-destructive when saving and investing create more stress than the problems they're meant to solve, leading to either abandonment of financial planning or unhealthy obsession with money that undermines overall life satisfaction. Let me tell you about two people who approached life philosophy completely differently. The catastrophic worrier focused intensely on every possible financial disaster, constantly researching economic predictions and adjusting strategies based on fear. His anxiety about money dominated his thoughts and prevented him from enjoying present circumstances or maintaining healthy relationships. The prepared optimist built reasonable financial security while maintaining perspective about money's role in overall well-being. She understood that financial preparation should enhance rather than replace other important life elements like relationships, health, and meaningful activities. The solution involves building financial resilience through practical steps while maintaining psychological balance. This means having emergency funds and long-term savings without becoming obsessed with perfect optimization or guaranteed outcomes. However, avoid financial advice that promises unrealistic returns or creates fear about economic collapse. Here's something important you can implement. If financial planning creates anxiety, restricts reasonable life enjoyment, or damages relationships, reassess your approach. Financial security should reduce stress, not increase it. Consider working with a fee-only financial advisor if money management becomes overwhelming. The mindset shift needed is understanding that financial planning is one component of well-being, not the primary focus of life. Money provides security and options, but excessive focus on wealth accumulation can undermine the very life satisfaction it's meant to support. Critical wellness check. If you find yourself avoiding social activities due to saving goals, constantly worrying about financial markets, or making decisions based primarily on money rather than values, these are signs that financial planning may have become unbalanced. Individual circumstances vary dramatically regarding financial capacity and appropriate goals. Focus on building security that enhances rather than restricts your ability to maintain important relationships and enjoy life reasonably. These 7 principles demonstrate how to build financial resilience through practical preparation rather than fear-driven decisions. Building emergency funds, staying informed about economic trends, and developing systematic saving habits can provide genuine security without creating unhealthy anxiety about money. The key insight is that financial planning should enhance rather than undermine your mental health and relationships. Individual circumstances vary dramatically regarding income, expenses, and saving capacity. So adjust these approaches to fit your actual situation rather than following rigid formulas that might create stress. Avoid both extremes, ignoring financial planning completely and becoming obsessed with worst-case economic scenarios. Balanced preparation typically provides better security than dramatic lifestyle changes driven by fear or unrealistic expectations about guaranteed returns. Remember that financial resilience is one component of overall well-being, not the primary focus of a satisfying life. How do you balance financial preparation with mental health and life enjoyment in your current circumstances? Share your balanced approach below, and subscribe for practical financial guidance that prioritizes both security and psychological well-being over fear-based messaging.